Where are you right now?
I asked my daughter. She nonchalantly replied.
Anywhere is fine.
Frustrated, I insisted.
Come home immediately.
But my daughter retorted.
No way. We're on an overseas vacation. We won't be back for another 3 days.
When I called her, she didn't seem remorseful at all. Instead, she answered with high energy and laughter. As I passed by my daughter and son-in-law's house, I heard a faint cry for help from inside. The voice was incredibly small. It was the voice of my beloved grandchild. When I used my spare key to enter the house, I discovered my 5-year-old grandchild tightly bound in a rope, hidden deep inside the closet. My daughter and son-in-law had exposed my precious grandchild to danger, and the consequences were severe. Fueled by anger, I resolved that my daughter and son-in-law must be held accountable, no matter what. My name is Mary, and I am a grandmother now. Lately, the chilly weather has kept me indoors, making me feel quite lonely. You see, my husband passed away several years ago, leaving me to live alone. His death was truly heartbreaking, and the loneliness persisted for a long time. However, there is something that brings me joy now, my kindergarten-aged grandchild, Mia. Over the past few years, I haven't seen my daughter Samantha and her husband Michael very often. The frequency of our visits decreased significantly after Mia was born. But despite being a somewhat absent grandmother, Mia has grown very fond of me. Occasionally, she'll say,
"I love you, Grandma."
Each time she does, my heart swells with affection. As a result, I find myself buying her various things and even sending her allowances. People around me recognize this as grandma spoiling, but I have no regrets. Mia is my one and only grandchild, a precious presence that cannot be replaced. Right now, my love for Mia fills my heart completely. However, I also have concerns. It revolves around my daughter and son-in-law's parenting approach. Frankly, Samantha tends to prioritize her own needs over those of her child. And Michael, her husband, doesn't seem particularly attached to Mia. When I raised Samantha, I believed I showered her with affection, just as my late husband did. That's why deep down, I want to voice my complaints about Samantha's current family situation. On the other hand, I hesitate to interfere in their parenting decisions. Honestly, anything I say would likely be unwelcome, and they probably wouldn't listen. Moreover, if Samantha's stress being scolded by me was to inadvertently affect Mia, it would be disastrous. So, despite my conflicting feelings, I've decided not to meddle too much in their parenting choices. Although it's lonely not seeing Mia often, I know that if necessary, I can still visit her. Currently, they reside in the house where my late husband and I used to live. After his passing, managing the spacious home alone became overwhelming, so I handed it over to them. That's why I also have a spare key. Sometimes, I find myself thinking that I'd like to visit their home and see Mia, even if it's just spontaneously. One day, I had the chance to pass by my daughter and son-in-law's house after a long time. Since their home is quite a distance from where I currently live, I rarely visit on my own. However, there was a reason I decided to go there today. I had been invited by a friend who lives in the neighborhood. This friend happened to be a classmate from middle school, so I assumed we would reminisce about old memories. Little did I know that the conversation would take a much more serious turn.
Mary, do you really know about Mia?
Of course, she's my granddaughter. How could I not know? I answered matter-of-factly, unaware of my own ignorance.
No, that's not what I meant. Could it be that Mia is experiencing abuse?
Huh? My foolish voice blurted out instinctively. What do you mean? I decided to listen to my friend's detailed account. However, As I heard the story unfold, I felt increasingly uneasy. After hearing everything, I collapsed onto my knees. To think that Mia has been going through something like that without my knowledge. Seeing my exhausted expression, my friend tried desperately to console me.
Well, we don't know for sure. It's just a rumor, but I thought I should mention it. Maybe you could stop by their house on your way back?
According to my friend, Samantha and Michael have been frequently going out early in the morning and returning well past midnight. Of course, they don't take Mia with them. As a result, there's a neighborhood rumor that they leave their child behind and go out to play as a couple. Additionally, some people have noticed Mia spending long hours on the balcony. Concerned neighbors who tried to talk to Mia were usually met with Samantha's baffling response.
She's fine. My daughter just loves the balcony.
Hearing this, I couldn't help but think that my daughter and son-in-law might be capable of such behavior. While I believe I have raised Samantha properly, I can't fathom where things went wrong. My friend advised me to check on Mia's well-being, so I left the house promptly and headed toward my daughter and son-in-law's home. With my hands trembling slightly, I pressed the doorbell, but there was no sign of anyone coming out, only the sound of the chime echoing. Are they not home? I muttered, about to leave the premises. However, at that moment, I thought I heard something.
Help!
The word was faint, and my hearing had deteriorated lately, making it challenging to catch soft sounds. Unable to discern it clearly, I addressed the noise. Is someone there? No response. Maybe I had misheard, I thought as I turned away from the house. But finally, I distinctly heard the plea.
Help!
My spine chilled. The source of that desperate cry could only be Mia. As a doting grandmother, I couldn't possibly have misheard. Given the circumstances, my daughter and son-in-law were likely out somewhere. But even if they left their child alone, why would she be calling for help? My mind raced to the worst possibilities, and I swiftly used the spare key to enter the house.
Mia! Mia! Where are you?
My voice reached her, and from not too far away, I heard Mia's reply.
Grandma?
Yes, it's Grandma. I'm here.
Mia informed me that she was inside the closet. My worst fears had come true. Mia was left bound in a tight coil of rope inside the closet.
Mia! How could this happen?
Desperate, I clawed at the rope, trying to free her as quickly as possible. But the knots resisted my efforts. The constriction was severe, leaving faint marks on Mia's skin. I grabbed nearby scissors and managed to release her from the restraints.
Grandma, are Mom and Dad not here?
Mia's voice trembled, resembling a fledgling bird frightened by an external threat. They're not here. It's okay. You're safe now. As I spoke, Mia flung herself into my arms, tears streaming down her face. My wet, disheveled clothes didn't matter. My daughter and son-in-law had gone too far. They had crossed a line that should never be crossed. Suppressing my trembling anger, I held Mia gently. Looking at her frail body once more, I noticed she had grown even thinner, weakened. She likely hadn't eaten properly for days. The marks from the rope on Mia's body were vivid, resembling bruises. These might take a while to fade. My anger surged uncontrollably, and I dialed Samantha's number. After a brief pause, a sluggish voice came through the phone.
Hello?
Her tone hinted at intoxication. It was inconceivable that she would be drinking while her own daughter was in such a weakened state. Suppressing my volcanic rage, I spoke in an icy tone.
Where are you right now?
Anywhere is fine.
She didn't seem remorseful. Instead, her high spirits grated on my nerves.
Samantha, answer truthfully. Where are you?
Perhaps sensing my seriousness, she finally revealed their whereabouts.
We're on a family vacation abroad. Why?
A family vacation. Yet they left Mia locked in a closet. How could this be a family trip? I pretended to be fooled by my daughter's talk of including Mia. My daughter's mood was somewhat lowered, but her annoyance at my biting remarks showed through the nuances of her words.
Regardless, come home immediately.
Why? It's a special family vacation. We won't be back for another 3 days.
Of course, I didn't expect them to return right away, but hearing it directly from my daughter only fueled my anger. Just as I was about to say something else, Samantha abruptly hung up, muttering,
Busy.
Samantha's attitude pushed me over the edge. To neglect one's own child and prioritize personal enjoyment, such behavior filled me with intense contempt and disgust. And to think that this despicable conduct came from my own daughter. I regretted my parenting decisions, and I felt a deep sense of apology toward my late husband. Amidst these complex emotions, I finally regained my composure when I saw Mia gripping my sleeve, her worried expression tugging at my heart. Mia was utterly weakened, so I rushed her to the hospital. According to the doctor, she was on the brink of severe malnutrition, but her life wasn't in immediate danger. For now, I felt relief that Mia was safe. Next, my anger toward my daughter and son-in-law exploded. They had endangered my one precious grandchild, and the consequences were severe. I resolved that my daughter and son-in-law must be held accountable, no matter what. It's truly heartbreaking to discover the extent of my daughter's actions. She's never done anything this extreme before. While the neighborhood gossip hints at mild mistreatment, I know my daughter isn't foolish enough to risk so much. If Mia were to reveal that she was genuinely abused, Samantha and Michael's lives would be ruined. Yet, I can't help but wonder about the reason behind such drastic measures. If there's a solid motive, perhaps I can arrest my daughter and son-in-law for child abuse. So, despite the painful memories it stirs, I decided to ask Mia for a detailed account of the situation. Mia hesitantly shared.
Mom, one day, I saw Mom bringing home a man I didn't recognize.
The implication is clear. Samantha was likely involved in an affair. My anguish deepened. Mia continued.
I thought he might be Dad's friend, so I innocently asked. But Mom got furious.
Piecing together Mia's account, it seems highly probable that Samantha was indeed having an affair. Facing exposure, she resorted to extreme measures like this. With all the puzzle pieces fitting, I took action. I contacted lawyers and authorities to prepare for justice against the couple who hurt my dear Mia. When I assured Mia that I'd protect her, she tearfully said,
I want to live with Grandma.
Moved by her words, I made a solemn vow, I'll be there for her, no matter what lies ahead. 3 days had passed, and my daughter and her husband returned from their trip. Still basking in the afterglow of their otherworldly experiences.
Let's go on another trip together.
Of course.
As they inserted the key into the lock, an unsettling feeling washed over them. No matter how much they turned the key, the door remained stubbornly shut. Samantha puzzled over it, muttering,
Wait, am I doing something wrong?
Michael, equally perplexed, asked.
What's going on?
Samantha's frustration grew as the key refused to cooperate. She glanced downward and saw a sign that read, For Sale. Michael followed her gaze and was equally shocked.
What on earth is happening?
he exclaimed. Both of them stood there, utterly bewildered. Then it hit Samantha, the person responsible for this bizarre situation.
That old hag.
She exclaimed. Grabbing her phone, Samantha dialed the number registered as annoying old lady. Hello? Have you returned? My voice, slightly high-pitched, echoed through the phone. Samantha erupted in anger, venting her frustration.
What the hell? Why is our house listed for sale? Did you do this? It's unbelievable.
I chuckled. But the laughter didn't come from the phone, it emanated from behind her. When Samantha turned, she saw me, wearing a triumphant smile. Samantha, I'm disappointed in you. I've always had doubts about your parenting style, but I never imagined it would come to this. I calmly reproached her.
Huh? What are you talking about?
You claimed you were on a family vacation abroad, right? Isn't Mia supposed to be with you?
In a situation where only her husband was present beside her, Samantha panicked and stammered.
Well, Mia went to a friend's house to deliver souvenirs.
She blurted out. Really? I responded, beckoning Mia, who had been hiding behind me. She clung to my legs, and Samantha's face turned pale.
Mia. Why are you here?
Samantha! You bound Mia with ropes and locked her in the closet. You're truly despicable. Why would you do such a thing?
Samantha, realizing she was caught, tried to justify herself.
What do you know? Parenting is tough. Sometimes you have to discipline kids like that to teach them.
Indeed, parenting is challenging. If only my foolish daughter had followed your example, maybe she'd be a slightly better person.
I laced my words with sarcasm. Samantha fell silent. Michael, usually quiet, voiced his frustration.
Why sell the house? What's going on?
When you took over the house, you never changed the ownership. So legally, this house is still mine. As the owner, I can sell it if I want. Samantha trembled.
So, where are we supposed to live now?
Disheartened, the couple failed to express concern for their child.
Don't you worry about your own child?
My stern tone made them uneasy.
Well, Mia is under your protection, right? No problem.
I sighed. Their indifference infuriated me. Samantha's words left me speechless. But there was something I needed to convey, so reluctantly, I continued. While you were gallivanting, I explained everything to Child Protective Services, lawyers, and the authorities. Mia's custody has been transferred to me. Their expressions didn't darken. Instead, they seemed oddly pleased.
Really? So, we don't have to deal with parenting anymore? Fantastic. Occasionally, you do something good too, huh?
Michael remained silent, but he nodded in agreement. But this is where it gets serious. I knew that sharing this news would put them in a good mood. So, with the intention of finally retaliating, I spoke up.
Well, it's not that easy for custody to change, right? You're not foolish, so you can imagine that much.
Despite my words, the couple seemed oblivious to the gravity of the situation. I continued. I merely consulted with Child Protective Services, but they deemed this incident quite serious and contacted the police. I explained. Their faces turned pale rapidly. I smiled sweetly and added, "You two should reflect on your actions in prison." Samantha protested.
Wait, what's going on? This is bad. We need to escape.
Michael, usually quiet, snapped.
Calm down. It's not like they're coming for us right away.
Both of them seemed irritated, so I decided to add fuel to the fire. By the way, Michael. The reason Samantha locked Mia this time is because her affair was about to be exposed. Michael's face momentarily showed confusion at my words, but then he blushed furiously and lunged at Samantha.
What do you mean? You were having an affair?
Calm down. This old hag is just making things up.
Despite Samantha's attempts to soothe him, Michael remained visibly agitated. I continued speaking. And guess who Samantha's affair partner was? James, her high school classmate. You know, the guy who lives nearby? Samantha's expression tightened.
How do you know all this? Ugh.
She had inadvertently admitted to the affair herself, and Michael was now berating her with fury. He was so angry that he could barely articulate coherent sentences. Seeing his rage, I found it somewhat amusing. But I wasn't done yet. By the way, James is married. His wife was furious when she found out. She even threatened to sue for damages. Samantha fell silent. Understandably so, she needed to find a new home, come up with excuses for the police, and brace herself for a hefty alimony payment. The police matter was almost a foregone conclusion. She was likely to be arrested. Right now, she is experiencing the lowest point in her life. But it wasn't enough to make amends for what she did to Mia. So, I decided to deliver one final, significant punishment. I actually hired a lawyer to investigate various matters. It turns out that Samantha had been using the money I sent for Mia's support. There should have been hundreds of thousands of dollars saved up, but you two seem to have spent it recklessly. Even the recent trip expenses were covered, it seems, I said, looking at Samantha, who appeared defeated. Michael, who had lost his composure until now, reacted slightly to my words. I've been inconvenienced too, so I'll be making a claim, I added with a touch of irony. Upon hearing my final statement, Samantha finally snapped and began berating me.
How could you do something so terrible to your own daughter? Unbelievable. You're an utterly hopeless parent.
I retorted.
I could say the same about you.
Samantha's anger flared, but she had brought this upon herself. I never imagined my own daughter would stoop to such levels. In the end, the couple was found guilty of child abuse and sentenced to prison. It was ironic that they had previously talked about separating due to Samantha's affair, yet now they were both headed to jail. The alimony claims resulting from the affair, along with the repayment for misusing my financial support, left the couple drowning in debt. Michael lost his job due to the guilty verdict, and with no substantial income, they faced the daunting task of repaying this significant sum. It was a complex mix of emotions, but they had brought it upon themselves. I hope they reflect and learn from their mistakes. On the other hand, I am enjoying my new life with Mia. Initially, she struggled to adapt to living alone with her grandmother, and the lingering anxiety from her past abuse weighed heavily on her. However, as our neighbors and I treated her kindly, a glimmer of brightness returned to her expression. Mia often says,
Thank you, Grandma, for helping me.
It's only natural to assist her given the circumstances, and I also feel sorry for not being able to help until it got to that point. Her sincere smile when she expresses gratitude warms my heart. My remaining days will be filled with time spent with Mia. Though they may not be long, I approach each day with hope and joy.
How did you find this story? Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed it. Until next time.
I will inherit my husband's $800,000 inheritance and this house. Since we have no children, everything belongs to me.
As my sister-in-law spoke with a triumphant air. My name is Amelia, a 45-year-old part-time worker. I have 2 sons with my husband, in 10th and 12th grade. This year, my eldest son is preparing for university entrance exams, dreaming of becoming a lawyer. It seems he has always admired lawyers since he was little, perhaps influenced by my brother, Harrison. Harrison is a lawyer who, a few years ago, established his own law firm and now oversees several attorneys. Growing up, my eldest son observed Harrison closely. Even in elementary school, he loved studying and consistently achieved good grades. Whenever Harrison heard that my son aspired to be a lawyer, he enthusiastically supported him. My son would say to Harrison whenever they met,
"I want to become a lawyer like you, Harrison."
Harrison respond with a smile.
"Become a lawyer soon and follow in my footsteps."
Although Harrison was married, he and his wife didn't have any children. When he visited our home, he played with my sons, and they grew fond of him. Harrison's wife, 10 years younger than him, was a bit eccentric and difficult to get along with. We rarely had the chance to converse with her. Both Harrison and I lost our parents early in life. When I got married, Harrison stepped in as a parental figure for me. After my marriage, Harrison also tied the knot. When we learned that Harrison was marrying a younger woman, my husband and I teased him. However, meeting Harrison's fiancée in person left us surprised by her perpetually unhappy expression. Considering she was about to marry Harrison, we expected her to be cheerful, but instead, she glared at us with a stern face. In front of them, we would say things like, "You two make a lovely couple." But when we were alone with my husband, our true feelings surfaced. Why is she so grumpy when the marriage is already decided? My husband agreed, looking concerned.
Not the most pleasant bride-to-be, huh?
Despite our worries, Harrison married his 10 years younger fiancée. Just before the wedding, Harrison purchased a single-family home, and we celebrated together with our still young children. Certainly, Harrison, who manages a law firm, lives in an impressive house. However, we couldn't see my newlywed sister-in-law anywhere. My husband playfully teased Harrison.
"Harrison, has your wife already run away?"
Of course, my husband meant it as a joke, but when we saw Harrison's stern expression, both my husband and I felt uneasy. According to Harrison, my sister-in-law tends to return to her parents' home whenever something happens. On that day, she was staying overnight to celebrate her mother's birthday. Feeling regret for our ill-timed comment, my husband hung his head. But then, Harrison addressed us with a serious expression.
"If I can't have children, would you consider adopting one of your 2 kids?"
Given that Harrison had just gotten married, we assumed he was joking. However, he looked dead serious. Caught off guard, I couldn't respond, but my husband replied with a smile.
"We don't know what the future holds. Let's discuss it if the situation arises. If it's okay with our kids, feel free to choose whichever one you'd like to adopt."
My husband didn't seem to take it too seriously, but I couldn't help but worry, not just about the adoption, but also about how well things were going between Harrison and his wife. Although it wasn't my place to interfere in Harrison's marital issues, I felt a vague sense of concern. After that incident, our family continued to visit Harrison's home, and he occasionally visited ours. However, My sister-in-law was always absent, and Harrison never mentioned her. I refrained from asking about her. Over a decade had passed since Harrison's marriage, and we had almost forgotten about my sister-in-law's existence. This year, my eldest son achieved his dream of being accepted into the university's law school. When Harrison came over to celebrate, he brought up the topic of adoption again.
I've mentioned this before, but could you consider adopting one of your kids?
Since Harrison and his wife still hadn't had children, he expressed a renewed interest in adopting one of ours. Unlike the last time, when they had just married, this time Harrison seemed genuinely serious. Even so, my husband responded nonchalantly.
Wouldn't it be better to choose our eldest son, who dreams of becoming a lawyer?
My husband's words were casual, but considering the significant impact on our sons' lives, I pondered carefully. Although it would be going to their Uncle Harrison's home, I wondered if my sister-in-law might be uneasy about it. I asked Harrison directly because I was worried that my sister-in-law might treat my sons, who aren't her biological children, indifferently. I gathered my courage and inquired, "Is my sister-in-law also in favor of adopting a child?" Harrison responded with a wry smile.
Honestly, you don't need to worry about her. We've already discussed it.
Hearing that the matter had been settled, I felt relieved. However, we couldn't make an immediate decision, so we decided to consult with our two sons. Since they were already high school students, we wanted them to have a say in their own lives. We didn't delve further into the topic that day, but a few days later, we received a call from Harrison's law firm saying that he had collapsed. Rushing to the hospital where Harrison had been taken, we found the law firm staff waiting anxiously. Harrison had suffered a stroke while working and was unconscious. Although the law firm staff left once I arrived, they informed us that they couldn't reach Harrison's wife. We tried contacting her at home, but she didn't answer, and we didn't even have her mobile phone number. Later, my husband and sons also arrived at the hospital, but we still couldn't get in touch with Harrison's wife. Eventually, our younger son managed to find Harrison's smartphone among his belongings. After unlocking it, he somehow retrieved his wife's mobile phone number. When I called Harrison's wife from his smartphone, she answered with an angry voice.
Didn't I tell you not to call me anymore? I'll sue you.
Despite her fierce tone, I hesitantly introduced myself.
This is Amelia, Harrison's sister. Are you my sister-in-law? Harrison has collapsed and has been taken to the hospital.
Once she realized it was me on the phone, her demeanor softened.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Harrison. But more importantly, Harrison collapsed?
I explained Harrison's condition and which hospital he was in. She seemed oddly pleased.
I have something important to attend to right now, so I can't go to the hospital. But if anything happens, please let me know.
With that, she hung up. Even though her husband was in critical condition, I wondered what could be more important. Realizing that Harrison's wife wasn't reliable, we decided as a family to take care of Harrison. Since my eldest son had finished his university entrance exams and was relaxing at home, he accompanied Harrison almost every day. Yet, Harrison remained unconscious, and his wife never visited the hospital or called. Around a week after Harrison was hospitalized, I called my sister-in-law's mobile phone again. She answered promptly and exclaimed with delight.
What's wrong? Has he passed away?
Her insensitive choice of words made me want to shout back in anger, but I restrained myself and replied,
Harrison is still alive. Why aren't you coming to the hospital?
In response, my sister-in-law retorted, further fueling my anger.
Because there's nothing I can do. I'm not a doctor, and I can't make him recover.
Her flippant tone infuriated me even more, and I ended the call right there. I began to wonder if Harrison's desire to adopt one of our sons was due to his troubled relationship with his wife, as they couldn't have children. When Harrison's marriage was arranged, I asked where he had met his wife. He mentioned that they were introduced through a marriage agency. Perhaps his wife had married him with the intention of securing a comfortable life, knowing he was a lawyer. This thought fueled my anger further. When I discussed it with my husband, he revealed something even more unsettling.
If Harrison passes away, all of his assets, given that he has no children, will go to that wife of his?
Recently, during the celebration of our eldest son's acceptance into university, Harrison had earnestly discussed adoption. It seemed he was considering inheritance matters. At that time, I regretted not finalizing the adoption decision. Now, it was too late. After Harrison left, I subtly broached the topic of adoption with our two sons. Surprisingly, our younger son expressed enthusiasm about being adopted. Unlike our eldest son, who had clear goals, our younger son seemed to believe that being Harrison's adoptive child would lead to an easier life. Although I thought our eldest son, who admired Harrison, would also want to be adopted, his response caught me off guard.
As the eldest son, I'll take care of mom and dad, so I don't want to be adopted.
While I was pleased with his answer, I still felt strongly that our eldest son, who aspired to become a lawyer, was the most suitable candidate for Harrison's adoption. It frustrated me that I couldn't proceed with the adoption process while Harrison remained unconscious. Although I didn't desire Harrison's inheritance, I had no intention of handing over a single cent of his assets to his wife, who seemed to be waiting for his demise. All we could do now was pray for Harrison's recovery, but unfortunately, his condition did not improve. A few days later, Harrison passed away. Reluctantly, we decided to inform his wife. Harrison has passed away. Can we hold the funeral ourselves? When my sister-in-law, who had been waiting for news of Harrison's passing, responded cheerfully, she said,
I leave it all to you. Don't make me the chief mourner. I don't want to deal with the hassle of greetings.
As I was about to lose my temper, my sister-in-law promptly hung up the phone. In the end, my husband and I took care of the funeral arrangements. The lawyers at the firm also helped us. My husband was worried about the future of the law firm, but Harrison had already made solid plans. Although he was the lead attorney, he entrusted the management of the firm to someone trustworthy, ensuring its smooth continuation as a corporate entity. Many people attended Harrison's funeral, and we truly understood his greatness. Our sons also helped during the funeral, but when they saw prominent figures like CEOs and politicians arriving, our second son felt genuinely frustrated.
I should have become Harrison's adopted son. I never realized he was such an extraordinary person.
While our eldest son rolled his eyes at his brother's words, my husband and I empathize with our second son's feelings. As the chief mourner, I officiated the funeral, and surprisingly, no one questioned my sister-in-law's absence. Perhaps not many people knew that Harrison was married. It seemed like only our family was aware. Harrison and his wife had skipped a wedding ceremony and opted for a honeymoon instead, so even relatives might not have noticed. Sometimes, I regret getting married in situations like this. Despite Harrison's passing, his absent wife wasn't necessary at the funeral. Instead, I couldn't help but regret not adopting our second son sooner, especially considering that she would likely take all of Harrison's assets. Thanks to the assistance from the law firm, Harrison's funeral concluded successfully, and we invited everyone to Harrison's home for a meal. Thanks to all of you, I believe Harrison can rest in peace. As my family and the lawyers sat solemnly, my flamboyant sister-in-law arrived, seemingly timed to coincide with the end of the funeral. I approached her.
"What are you doing here now? Do you need something from us?"
With a beaming smile, my sister-in-law loudly declared,
"I'll inherit my husband's $800,000 estate and this house. Since we have no children, everything belongs to me."
As she spoke triumphantly, all of Harrison's subordinates from the law firm burst into laughter. Our family looked puzzled, wondering why the lawyers found it so amusing. Undeterred, my sister-in-law glared at them and snapped,
"What's so funny? Rude people."
One of the lawyers, grinning, replied to her question. The lawyer said,
"But you're no longer the representative's wife, are you? We know that the divorce was officially finalized through mediation on the day before the representative collapsed."
Upon hearing this fact for the first time, I exclaimed,
"What? You were divorced?"
I looked at my sister-in-law in a panic, and she glared at the lawyer who had just revealed the truth with an even more frightening expression. Another lawyer chimed in. The lawyer said,
"We've also heard that you were claimed for emotional damages along with the divorce. Considering that your infidelity was the reason for the divorce, it's understandable."
My sister-in-law shouted back, seemingly mocking the lawyer,
"I don't have to pay emotional damages. The person I was supposed to pay doesn't exist anymore."
However, her attempt to belittle the situation was swiftly countered by the legal expert.
"Since the right to claim emotional damages is also inherited, you'll have to pay it to the representative's sister."
At that moment, I realized that I was Harrison's sole heir. If the divorce was valid, then with no parents in the picture, I was the only one left. My sister-in-law seemed to realize this too, and she stared at me with a terrifying expression. I instinctively stepped back. Frustrated and unwilling to accept this, she shouted at the lawyers once again.
"Since the divorce is final, can't I get half of the property through asset division?"
The exasperated lawyer informed her.
"When the divorce was finalized, didn't you receive money from the representative? We have proof of the transaction. Besides, this house was purchased by the representative before the marriage, so it's not subject to asset division."
Watching my sister-in-law being outmatched by the lawyers was quite entertaining. She seemed to recall something and, with a hint of laughter, blurted out,
"But there's still life insurance. I should still be the beneficiary."
Amidst this tense atmosphere, my sister-in-law's calm demeanor impressed me. She had confidently claimed to be the beneficiary when she changed the life insurance recipient upon marriage. However, the lawyers promptly refuted her claim.
"Given the representative's responsible nature, we believe he changed the beneficiary when the divorce was finalized."
As instructed, I searched through Harrison's valuables and found the life insurance certificate. My sister-in-law tried to snatch it from me, frantically checking the recipient. But her shoulders slumped when she realized it was still me. With nothing left to gain, she couldn't help but voice her true feelings.
"Being married to a lawyer, I thought I'd get a fortune, but I ended up with so little. And now, I have to pay emotional damages too. What a colossal failure."
The stern-faced lawyer had a retort ready for her.
The representative said the same thing. He regretted relying on a marriage agency. He said it was a big mistake.
Harrison never told me anything like that, but he was honest with his colleagues and subordinates. The sister-in-law had nothing to say and left Harrison's house with her back bent. After that, the sister-in-law seemed to have agreed to pay the alimony in installments, but she had no job and had to look for one urgently. But she didn't seem to have worked seriously before, and she quit soon. She registered with a marriage agency again to find a rich man and get money easily. She tricked a man into giving her money by saying she needed it for the wedding, but he soon realized and reported her to the police. Harrison's subordinate lawyer told me that the sister-in-law was arrested for marriage fraud. To be honest, I didn't receive any alimony from her. When I went to check with the lawyer about it, that's when the story came up. The lawyer told me with a disgusted face.
She's been arrested, so I don't think you'll get any alimony for a while.
I didn't care about the alimony. I felt better knowing that the sister-in-law got what she deserved. I think Harrison would have wanted that too. I wanted the police to thoroughly investigate her other crimes and give her a heavy sentence in court. Unexpectedly, I inherited Harrison's property. My whole family moved to the house that Harrison left behind. We used to live in a rented apartment, so we were all very happy to live in a house. We all followed in Harrison's footsteps, but my eldest son studied harder than ever and worked hard to become a lawyer. He admired the lawyers who defeated the sister-in-law even more. He couldn't become an adopted child, but I hope he inherits Harrison's will and becomes a great lawyer like him. Only my second son was angry that I inherited all of Harrison's property and regretted it.
I should have been Harrison's adopted child. Then I could have inherited everything.
I smiled at my second son, who was joking half-heartedly.
How did you like this story? Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.